Do you remember that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer decided not to do daylight savings?
Yes.
He just didn't do it.
Yes.
And then he was an hour off, obviously, from everybody else.
Yeah.
And he acted surprised. Those great episode.
Yeah.
You can't really do that. Yeah. Those patterns and rhythms matter. And if you just keep pushing things earlier, it interrupts the natural rhythm that we have in our spiritual lives, in our physical lives, and emotionally and psychologically as well. So you got to do that carefully. Hello and welcome to the Pray Tell podcast. I believe this is episode 10.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Crazy. This is the podcast where we explore the Anglican tradition through the modern lens. My name is Tyler. This is Trevor.
Hey.
We're two parishioners at St. Matthew's Anglican Church in Abbotsford BC. And today we're here to talk about Advent for a bit.
Yeah, and last year, you'll remember, Tyler, and if you listened last year, anyone, we did a whole 5-part series on Advent to kind of launch this whole podcast. So we focused on what Advent kind of looks like at our church or in the Anglican Church. We talked about the themes for each week and the different readings. This time, we're not going to do a 5-part series. We want to do more of a broader kind of look at it just in 1 or 2 kind of episodes here, and what is the kind of bigger understanding we can take away. Yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to approach it this time. We're going to have an episode on Christmas as well, or for Christmas. I think we're going to talk about like the 12 days of Christmas and what that kind of looks like, or where it comes from. What is it? It's not just this, black hole of time in between Christmas Day and whenever you go back to work in early January. So, yeah.
And if you want to go back and look at those episodes from last year on Advent, I think that'd be a great exercise. Just remember though that the readings that we talked about for those Sundays of Advent are all different this year, just because of the way the liturgical readings go. So if you go back and listen, and then you go to church and the readings are different, they're different because that's how the church year is structured. So just know that. Still lots of good things in there, and would probably be worthwhile doing.
Yeah, and we accidentally do one of the wrong readings, so maybe it's the right one for this year.
I think we did that twice, actually.
Yeah.
We had to re-record one, and then we just went with it.
It's good. So it's all good.
We did that.
So yeah, if you want to go back and download those or watch them on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe or do all those things to, spread the love and spread the word.
Before we get started today on Advent, whenever we do an episode, we always source a local brew. We've done Fieldhouse, we've done Sidekick Brewing, Loudmouth Brewing here in Abbotsford, always something kind of local. And today we have something a little bit different. It's still local, but it's one of Trevor's homemade brews.
Yeah, so I like to brew when I have time. Been doing it for a few years, so it had been like almost about a year, I guess, since I had last done it. And early October, I decided to make a coffee stout.
Okay.
So stout, dark beer, brewed with some coffee. And yeah, so that's what I brought today.
When you were a young man, did you ever watch the Drew Carey show?
A little bit, yeah.
Do you remember the beer that they homebrewed on that show?
No, I do not.
It's called Buzz Beer.
Buzz Beer.
And it was coffee and beer.
Okay.
And they sold it to their local brewery.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a pretty good show, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But I always remember thinking it sounds like a good combination. Yeah. So what is your home setup like for making beer?
I started out, like the first time I did it, just doing it in the kitchen, like in the sink and on the stove. And then I moved to, that's what I bottled. Then I moved to, I bought a freezer, or it's called a kegerator. So it's a converted chest freezer or a mini fridge that has a 5-gallon keg, 20-ish liters. And our house got flooded. I had to start over. So I just decided to build one from scratch. I just found a used chest freezer, like a small one.
Yeah.
And so that's what I have. It can fit 3 kegs. I just have one right now.
Okay.
So I have taps, keg, And yeah, if you know anything about brewing, I do what's called all grain brewing. So instead of using the extracted sugars that you kind of just mix together in the big boil pot, I do the whole, like, add the grains to the hot water, and you have to extract all the sugars that way first. So it's a little bit of a more involved and longer process, but I kind of like it because it's the same. One of the reasons why I also really love baking is it's like science, doing a science experiment. You got to kind of control for these as best you can, these different things. And so it's fun. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's pour it.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, my brewery, my home brewery name is Soggy Bottom Brewing. After our house got flooded, I thought, how more appropriate could it be?
Well, here's the Soggy Bottom.
Cheers.
Thank you. That's great.
Pretty good.
I love that.
I did that thing I did a few episodes ago where I had gum, and I shouldn't have. So I should probably.
It'll take care of itself.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about Advent. For those of you who don't know, Advent is the beginning of our church year. So we always run on the same cycle every year. The season of Advent is the beginning of the church year. Then we go into Christmas, and we go into Epiphany, the season of Lent, the season of Easter, and then going into the season of Pentecost. And going into Advent means you're kind of coming out of this long. Pentecost is a long season. It goes basically from kind of the beginning, middle of the summer, all the way until deep into the fall here. And when you get to Advent, it's sparking a lot of new things, because outside you have the change of seasons. It's starting to get cooler. Days are getting shorter. It's darker earlier, and then you kind of enter into this new season of waiting and anticipation for Jesus' birth, the coming of Jesus to earth for the first time, and within the Advent season, you're really working through that preparation and anticipation, trying to prepare yourself for the coming of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And this year, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, correct me, please. But I think Advent does it start on December 1st this year?
I think it does.
Right? Yeah, because it's the 4 Sundays preceding Christmas, and Christmas is on a Wednesday, I think, this year. So yeah, as you said, it's all about this anticipation, preparing. That's where the word Advent comes from, like
right.
Prepare something that's coming, something that's arriving. And each week in Advent, typically you'll have a different theme or focus. And if you can see our wreath and our candle here, we have these 5 candles, but the 4 that go around the one in the middle represent each theme. So the first week of Advent, or the first Sunday, is hope. The second Sunday is peace. The third is love. And the fourth is joy. And then the middle one is the Christ candle, which you light on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, I guess, if you have a Christmas Day service in your church.
Yeah, or it would be like if you had the quote unquote midnight mass.
Right, yes.
Right, you would light that right around midnight. That's the beginning of Christmas, the Christmas season.
Yeah. Representing,
Christ is now with us.
Yeah, and that Christ candle, depending what church you're at, that might stay lit for from that midnight mass or Christmas Day all the way through the 12 days of Christmas to Epiphany, which is early January. Just kind of depends where you are and what your traditions are. So yeah, that kind of just is a brief overview of what we do each Sunday, the themes you can expect, and it's really about just reminding us of Christ's ongoing presence in the world and these messages of hope, peace, joy, and love that we get during this season.
When I started going to the Anglican church back many years ago now, we started going to St. Aidan Anglican Church in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And our former priest, Father Allen, he was there for a few years. Him and his wife Denise, they were co-priests there, and then after they left, a man named Dean Pinter took over as the priest there. And while he was there, Tamara and I, my wife, that's when we started going. It was mainly when he was there. He was very much into the Celtic tradition, and so he pointed this resource out to us many years ago. This is a Celtic daily prayer book. And I'm just looking now. There's a nice little write-up in here on Advent. There's quite a bit here just kind of introing the Celtic tradition towards Advent, which in many ways the Celts reinvigorated the English with Christianity.
Yeah.
They came over from Ireland. They kind of brought Christianity back, helped them get through all kinds of trials and tribulations. And so within the Anglican tradition, there's lots of drawing upon the Celtic tradition, which is in some ways older, but drawing on similar sources. So there's, I think, a lot of helpful points in this little write-up here that I'll just read through, and it'll, I think, give a good flavor for what the Advent season is like and the emphasis it has. So Advent is traditionally a time of preparation for Christmas. It is said that the door to the stable where the Christ child has been born is very low, and only those who kneel find access. Being ready for Christmas should mean that our thoughts are focused not just on letters, cards, and presents, but on repentance, humbling, and interior, quote-unquote, house cleaning. John the Baptist warned his hearers to prepare a way for the Lord, to make a clear and level pathway. This involves removing any boulders that stand in the way and filling in any potholes. The boulders are the things we have done that we should not have done. The potholes are the things we have failed to do, which we obviously should have done. The more, as individuals, family, or congregation, we are focused in this way, the less we will be overwhelmed by the commercialization of Christmas. In the run-up to Christmas, we remember especially Zacharias and Elizabeth and the child John, who, still in the womb, leapt in anticipation of the coming of the Lord. Christ has come. Christ has died and is risen. Christ will come again. And I think we see those themes a lot during the readings in Advent and during in the collects. Whenever you're in a time of fasting, which is essentially what Advent is, we're fasting before we feast. The church year is always, there's a lot of couples like they always couple those two things together quite frequently. Lent and Easter, Advent and Christmas, they echo each other in that sense. And the time of fasting is a time for thinking and repenting and remembering that we don't always get to just enjoy the payoff of the feasts. You need to be prepared for those times as well. And that's what I really appreciate about Advent is it's so easy during the run-up. Like it feels like everything post Halloween in some ways, or once you get through Remembrance Day here in Canada, you're just kind of gearing up for Christmas music and Christmas movies and all this stuff. But there's actually a time there where you're not supposed to be celebrating yet. It's not time yet.
Yeah, just going back to the idea of these pairs that you mentioned with like Lent and Easter, Advent and Christmas, this period of fasting and reflecting before the celebration. In some ways, I find it easier to do that during Lent because at this time of year, for many different reasons, it's very busy. It's not just because of Christmas, although that's like largely what it is, I think, and whatever other traditions people have, whether it's Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, or, whatever it is. Yeah. But it doesn't this period of the year does not lend itself at all anymore to slowing down and reflecting and taking your time to do something. Like, for example, I find every year our work Christmas party gets a little bit earlier, it seems, or my wife's does. And maybe a few years ago it was, mid-ish December. Now it's like maybe end of November, early December. Yeah. And we do that to recognize the fact that we have so many other things going on in mid-December that to do something like that. Yeah, we can do it earlier. It's not a problem. But it does kind of reflect this fact of this creep of the season that just keeps coming up, as you said, right after Halloween. The stores all switch over in the middle of the night. So on November 1st, it's Christmas decorations. And then Remembrance Day is a pretty good marker for people of, okay, now it's appropriate maybe to put up my tree or my lights or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's all these things that make us want to rush into all of the traditions and things we do this time of year. And on top of that, businesses are, it's year end. And you're trying to get all that stuff in order. And we got kids' Christmas concerts and we got all the stuff. And to take the time to reflect and pause and fast, whether literally or in a metaphorical sense, could be quite revolutionary.
Well, and I think two things. The thing I often hear when we're starting to push Christmassy things earlier is, well, what's the difference? We can do it later or we can do it earlier. Yeah. Does it really matter? And it's easy to think, well, no, it doesn't really matter until you realize that no matter what, humans are creatures of pattern and seasons. And it's why for me that, going through the seasons of the church year and trying to, I'm very bad at it, trying to remember that those seasons are what should be the primary way that you mark time.
Right.
And those seasons, if you do them too early, they throw off the pattern. It's like if you just said, well, why don't we just kind of do summer earlier? No, there's all kinds of things that go along. You can't just do it earlier. It messes up all kinds of later rhythms, and the rhythms count.
Yeah.
For a healthy mind and for a healthy spirit, for a healthy body. Sure. Why don't you just decide to sleep from 3:00 in the morning until 11 a.m. and you just change your day? Well, that's not really going to work. That pattern will eventually disrupt what makes you a human. Do you remember that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer decided not to do daylight savings?
Yes.
He just didn't do it.
Yes.
And then he was an hour off, obviously, from everybody else.
Yeah.
And he acted surprised. That was a great episode.
Yeah.
You can't really do that. Yeah. Right? Now, I have my own comments on daylight savings. Don't get me started. But for another episode, another time. The government. But anyways, those patterns and rhythms matter. And if you just keep pushing things earlier, it interrupts the natural rhythm that we have in our spiritual lives, in our physical lives, and emotionally and psychologically as well. So you got to do that carefully.
One of the challenges with that for us, though, is because we are so far removed from actually being in tune with the rhythm of the seasons and being outside and going to bed when it gets dark and waking up when it gets light and that kind of thing, is we don't have maybe a great sense of rhythm or cadence throughout our daily life, except when it revolves around getting your kids ready or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So to ask people to get in touch with that again can force someone to drastically reshape how they move throughout their day. And rightly so, many people don't want to do that because it would mess things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not a I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing. It's just a reality. But there could definitely be some benefit if any of us, to whatever extent we can, in whatever small ways, make efforts to try to get in touch with that again, whether it's putting your phone away for an hour and a half before you actually intend to go to bed or to sleep, reading a book instead of watching TV, or, going for a walk in the morning before, getting ready, whatever. Things like that can help you get closer in some ways to this rhythm, just reflecting and being more present, I think. with the season and what it might mean for you. And then when we talk about whether it's Advent or whatever part of the church year, Lent later on, it can be a lot more potentially intuitive to engage with some of the practices that we do. Could be.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's all kinds of, whether you're looking through like a book of daily prayer or different traditional expressions of the Advent season, there's all kinds of ways to, in little daily ways to stop and remember the season that we're in. It can be even as simple as getting those, the little chocolate calendars that you got when I got for years and years. I think you still get them.
Still do.
And actually just using them. It's December 1st. Like that's not like it's an Advent calendar. They still call them that.
Yeah.
So just using that as just a little marker to say, well, it's December 1st. We got my Advent calendar. What does this mean? And reflecting on that for 30 seconds or helping your children to do that, whatever the case is, finding those little ways to remind ourselves of the season that we're in and that the Christmas, the lead up to Christmas is about more than just the hectic helter-skelter buying of presents and going to Christmas parties and doing things you don't want to do, and being with people you don't want to be with, and all those things. It's about something a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's cool, like learning more about the Anglican tradition, about even the concept of 12 days of Christmas and then Epiphany. Like, I think we talked about it a bit last year about how traditionally we would feel like we're just ramping up for one day. We're getting ready for Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. And then it's over, and then you kind of come off the crash and all that stuff. But then with 12 days of Christmas and Epiphany and things like that, it's the celebration is longer. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that can help shift perspective too and make it so it's not just this like crazy climax at one point. There's more.
I hate to put it this way, but I'm going to. We kind of have to figure out what is the incentive to wanting to make a change like this. Is it 12 days of Christmas? Like maybe like it's an incentive in the fact that like at the most surface basic level, I can extend my celebration time or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like when I think of going back just to September of this year, and we're getting back into the me going back to work as a teacher, my kids back in daycare, my wife continuing to be going to work every day. Like all of us are out of the house and having to change the habits that help us be ready to go in the morning from what it was in the summer. Mm-hmm. My incentive was I don't want to be rushing to do this at 7 a.m. when I'm trying to feed children or do this thing. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do it the night before. Yeah. Same thing with like, I can't cook. It's hard to cook dinner and, take care of these two children who need my attention at 5 p.m. What's my incentive? I want to be present with them so I don't have to cook. So what am I going to do? I'm going to like do my meal prep before. Yeah. So what is the incentive for us to do this? I think that takes some digging to figure out like what's going to be important enough for me to shift my thinking or my habits around some of these things. Mm-hmm. And why does it feel harder to do it for maybe this compared to like, because I have a family that relies on me in certain ways? Because I think it is it's harder in one sense, but it shouldn't be hard because it's not like anyone's asking me to make sure my children are fed. It's like making sure my soul is fed or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And
the reality is the way that our culture has set up Christmas is you get a week or so, a week and a half of like kind of shutdown time that starts just before Christmas. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have built in there a natural rest period. But I don't want to overthink that time. No. I've kind of come through the busy season. And so now it's a time to rest, which is not a bad way to think about the season of Christmas.
Yeah.
As a period of rest and feasting. Like that's a reward time. That's great. But I think that the hard part is to remember in the midst of it, the point of the rest. It's not just rest for rest's sake. It's not rest because it's Christmas break. It's the point of the season is we've prepared, Jesus has come, and now we get to kind of remember that and just kind of try to recall it. And that's not easy to do because there's not a lot of other people doing it.
Because where I work, I have to do devotions with my class in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily have to do it every day, but I'm always on the lookout for good, like middle school age devotion resources because I think there's a lot of like crappy ones. And so I haven't felt like for a long time I've been able to find something really good that I feel good using until somewhat recently. So like on the topic of like, what are the resources that you can, plug into or find to help you with these things? So do you remember, I believe his name is Rob James. He's priest in the diocese. He spoke at Father James's induction
he's a
ceremony.
Professor at Regent College.
And at VST. Yes. Anyways, I somehow randomly, I don't even know how I came across it. He's coming out in December with a children's book of Bible stories, like an illustrated children's book. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. Like I heard this guy speak once. He was really engaging, quite enjoyed him. So I pre-ordered it. So I'm waiting for that to come and I'm excited to check that out, maybe use it in my work, maybe with my own kids when they're, a little bit older. But just trying to find like resources can be part of the challenge sometimes.
Yeah.
The Anglican Church does have a pretty big wealth of people and resources that you can tap into. Like I know I have, even within the Diocese of New Westminster where we are, I've connected with someone at the diocese who's involved with youth and the planning with all the youth and stuff. And she kind of shared with me some things, but yeah, like if you're looking for something, maybe it's worth checking out your local diocese if you can, or if you know someone, or like, do you have anything that you found like good? Because it's tough sometimes.
I know it's hard. One of my friends from back in Saskatchewan, his name is Luke Johnson, and he was doing youth ministry at St. Aidan, and he came up with basically his own curriculum for trying to like marry the idea of youth ministry, which is not commonly something where people do a lot of pausing and thinking because of the nature of youth. Yeah. So he tried to kind of take the parts of the Anglican tradition that he thought would resonate with young people and figure out a way to make it fit within a youth ministry setting. And he actually, I think he made published a website that kind of laid out all the resources. I don't remember what it's called, but he loves to talk about it. So if you looked up Luke Johnson, St. Aidan, he'll tell you all about it and probably direct you to some of those resources. And for myself, just trying to be aware of what's in the prayer books, because it's easy to overcomplicate this stuff.
Totally. Yeah.
There's no need. Anglicans have been trying to have been doing daily devotions and daily prayer for 600 plus years, and people haven't changed much during that time. The way they express themselves, the technology they use, the speed of being able to gather information and give information has definitely changed, but the content and the nature has not changed that much. So maybe whether that means you find a more modern translation or kind of a different take on it, when those resources are definitely out there, trying to figure out a way to incorporate daily prayer, morning, evening, and afternoon prayer as much as possible into one's life, to taking the seasons of the church seriously and trying to recognize the differences at each stage of the church year, which doesn't take a lot of work. You just gotta kind of go to church, which can be a lot of work, trust me. But I think there's lots of payoff there. You should just pay attention. But that's an easy to say. It's a simple thing. That's hard to do. We both have children. We have families that are close. You get sick, tired from work, all those things. And it doesn't, just trying to stay consistent, I think, is the key, and persistent at those things. Sometimes you miss one, sometimes you don't go for a few weeks, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Get back on it, keep going, keep listening and paying attention, and it'll work out.
Okay, Tyler, to kind of turn here and bring it into a sort of a different direction, I'd like to talk a little bit about with you, like, what are some of the things that you do during the Advent season in your daily life to kind of observe this time? Like, do you have just kind of little things you do? You talked about, even if it's just the chocolate from the Advent calendar, which is super common. Are there fun things you do, silly things that you're like, I'm not even sure, I rarely even thought this was Advent related, but maybe it is in some way? Like, do you have anything like that going on with your family or yourself?
Nothing super structured. I always love watching those claymation, live action, old timey Christmas movies.
Yeah, me too.
And my kids will, because they're not the flashiest things on YouTube, often forget about them until I just put it on, and then we all just watch it and love it. And so whether it's Santa Claus is Coming to Town or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, those are the two favorites.
Yeah.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas is not the claymation one, but it's another old one that I love to play. Putting those on are always just a marker of the season. Not breaking a lot of new ground there, playing Christmas movies during Advent, but they're ones that kind of we revisit every year and form kind of one of our little patterns. My wife found this old kind of felt Advent calendar that has a bunch of safety pins that you like go pin this part, you move it down onto the day. That's always a really exciting thing to move around the house and to find the next day for. How about for you?
It's not totally Advent connected, but I think it is. And if I'll try to explain. I don't know when this started. I would say since 2020, maybe since we had kids. But anyways, my wife and I were very big Harry Potter fans. We've read the books a number of times, obviously seen all the movies. And we decided 3-4 years ago, in the lead up to Christmas, starting in mid-November, why don't we watch one Harry Potter movie each week on the weekend? And if we time it right, we can start mid-November and be on Deathly Hallows Part 2 the week of Christmas or right before Christmas. So that's become one of our traditions that we've done for the last 2 or 3 years. And so obviously it starts a little bit before Advent, but it also coincides with that time as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I think of it as an Advent tradition. I think maybe it's because it's something that we do in that lead up to Christmas, and it is like an intentional time when we're actually sitting down and not doing anything but watching a movie together, and one that we know super well. But I think when you look at the themes for each Sunday of Advent, hope, peace, joy, love, I think those are pretty strong themes. At least a couple of them are very strong themes within the books. And the overall or overarching theme of anticipation in the season of Advent is very evident in the Harry Potter series. Like, everyone is anticipating, oh, it's Harry. This is the boy who lived.
Yes.
You are going to defeat Voldemort, aren't you? Or he who must not be named.
I mean,
like,
it's fairly,
when are you going to do it? Right.
It's fairly on point.
Totally. And so like all of these people have these preconceived notions of who Harry should be and what he should do and when he's going to do it and why hasn't he done it yet and we've lost faith in you now and we kind of get into this dark point towards the end of the novel, which is kind of how Advent is. Mm-hmm. It is kind of this dreary anticipatory season that we're in until we get to Christmas when we celebrate. And then we get to the climax of the story and Harry defeats Voldemort and there's hope again and there's peace and it's obviously joyful. And it's like one of the main themes is like the power of love and self-sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And not that's more like the Lent story, I guess. But still, I think those themes really kind of, for me, resonate in this time of year. And I like watching those movies and reading those books. So
yeah, I like that one.
Hey, Tyler, when do you put up your Christmas tree?
Let me stop you right there. Do you know when I don't put up my Christmas tree? October 30th. Not saying any of you have done that. I would hope none of you have. But I observed several Christmas trees this year going up at or around Halloween time. And I gotta say, don't do it. Under no circumstances should a Christmas tree, fake or real, be going up in a house on October 30th. I would say, I don't know, what's the max?
See, for me,
I was going to say, Trevor, is your tree out?
No, it's not. I'm in full agreement with you there. For me, kind of the date when Christmas can start.
Yes.
The season is like the 25th of November because you're a month out from Christmas. So you can turn on the music if you want to. You can decorate. It's Thanksgiving long weekend in the States.
Right.
So I'd say like aim for that late November, early December.
It is one of the advantages that the Americans have over the Canadians is they have a very clear marker of when Christmas starts.
Yeah.
It's Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We unfortunately have this incredible dead time where we are like not really sure when we are. It's Remembrance Day, and then it's done, and it's like, well, what are we supposed to be doing? And the actual answer is, people, you don't need to celebrate anything. It's just regular time. But I think November 25th is a good marker. I myself just use the month of December. Once it's December, then we can get the tree. Doesn't have to be December 1st, but if it is, totally okay. No judgment from me. But you can't, it's not October 30th. It's not even close. So don't do it. Please.
I feel like Canadians, we use Remembrance Day as our Thanksgiving. Like that's the marker we have for a lot of people. Like I heard that recently, people saying, Remembrance Day, it's the day off. I can put up my tree because that's like the last day off we have before anything that happens at Christmas time. That's too early for me.
That's tough, guys. It's not good.
Yeah.
And within the whole pattern discussion, it's tough to be wrong, except it's wrong. On this, there can be no debate. Well, I think that about gets us where we're needing to be on Advent. Just remember the reason for the season, the Advent season, is just to enjoy the waiting. And there's going to be all kinds of reasons why you can't, because of society and work. But there's a reason we use the Advent season to prepare for the feast of Christmas. Waiting is the point. But thank you for joining us for this episode. Trevor, thanks for the beer. Delicious. We hope you're able to find some peace during this hectic holiday season. If you're curious about St. Aidan, we meet at
St. Matthew.
Stop. If you're curious about St. Matthew, cut that. We meet at 10 a.m. On Sundays.
First Sunday of Advent is December 1st.
First Sunday of Advent is December 1st. Come and join us. Do you have anything else to wrap up with?
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you got a drink that you want us to, if you want us to, we don't review them, we just drink them. Put a comment down below. Let us know what you'd like us to try. That's somewhat we can kind of drive and get from Abbotsford. That'd be nice. But we hope to see you at our next episode, a Christmas episode, and see you at St. Matthew's Sunday mornings.